There's something deeply admirable about the kind of emotional strength that doesn't come from books, motivational quotes, or temporary success, but is formed in the fires of real life. Older women, having passed through the many seasons of life, often carry a quiet kind of strength that doesn't demand attention, but commands respect. It's not the strength that shouts. It's the kind that listens. It's the kind that endures. It's the kind that stays rooted when others are easily shaken. You see, maturity, true maturity, is not simply the result of age. It's the result of reflection. It's not about counting years, but about learning from them. Older women have often walked through storms that others only talk about. They've known the ache of loss, the weight of responsibility, the challenge of holding families together when things were falling apart. And through it all, something happened within them. They didn't just survive. They were shaped, refined, strengthened in their soul. There's something powerful about a woman who no longer reacts from insecurity, but responds from wisdom. Emotional maturity doesn't mean she doesn't feel deeply. In fact, older women often feel more deeply than most, but the difference lies in how they manage those feelings. Instead of being swept away by emotion, they've learned how to pause, to pray, and to proceed with grace. That calm tone, that patient silence, that choice not to argue even when they could, that's not weakness, discipline, that's strength. Think about this. When a younger woman faces disappointment, she may respond with frustration, fear, or anxiety, but an older woman who's seen how things play out over time knows that today's trouble is not the end of the story. She's learned that God's timing is not her timing. She's learned that some battles are not hers to fight. She's learned the value of letting go, the peace in trusting God, and the wisdom of choosing her battles carefully. This is the fruit of years spent walking through adversity. Many older women have had to carry burdens in silence, caring for a sick loved one, surviving a marriage that wasn't easy, raising children alone, or putting aside personal dreams to support others. In the midst of it, there may have been times when no one noticed, but God noticed. And what he was doing in those moments was building strength. Not the kind of strength that wears armor, but the kind that wears humility. You see, emotional maturity shows up in everyday moments. In the way she chooses kindness when she has every reason to be cold. In the way she forgives people who never apologized. In the way she smiles even when her heart is heavy. There's a wisdom there that can't be faked. And it's that wisdom that brings peace. Not just to her own life, but to those around her. Many older women become anchors in their communities and families, not because they have all the answers, but because they've learned what questions matter most. They don't jump to conclusions, they wait. They don't panic. They pray. They don't try to fix everything. They understand the power of simply being present. And perhaps the most profound part of emotional strength in older women is that it's often born from surrender. They've come to understand that they are not in control of everything, and that's okay. They've experienced loss, and they've found God's faithfulness on the other side. They've let go of what they once thought they needed and found joy in what they have. This kind of strength is not loud, but it is lasting. It doesn't seek recognition, but it offers stability. And in a world that often celebrates youth, it's important to stop and recognize the beauty of maturity, the grace that grows with time, the strength that is built through struggle, and the calm that comes from walking with God through many valleys. So the next time you meet an older woman who speaks with calm assurance, who responds with grace instead of anger, or who carries herself with quiet dignity, know that you're not just looking at a personality, you're witnessing the result of a life that's been seasoned by trials, tempered by wisdom, and sustained by faith. That's what maturity does. And that's what makes emotional strength in older women something not only to respect, but to learn from. Certainly. Below is the expanded version of the second keynote, Discernment over Drama, written in educational and thoughtful tone, inspired by the teaching style of Dr. Charles Stanley. It emphasizes quiet wisdom, lived experience, and a life centered on clarity and peace. As we journey through life, we come to understand that not everything requires our reaction, and not every conflict deserves our energy. Older women, more often than not, have already fought the unnecessary battles. They've learned, sometimes the hard way, That emotional drama drains the spirit and clouds good judgment. With age comes not just knowledge, but discernment, an ability to separate what is important from what is merely loud. And for older women, that discernment becomes a quiet but powerful guide. In earlier years, it's easy to get caught up in the noise of life. What people think, what they say, the need to be right, the desire to defend ourselves. But older women have discovered that peace is more valuable than pride. They understand that walking away from drama is not weakness, it's wisdom. Because they have learned that not every argument must be won, not every insult needs a response, and not every disagreement has to become a battlefield. This discernment isn't something that comes overnight. It is shaped through experience, reflection, and the repeated realization that peace must be chosen. When a woman has seen how arguments can damage relationships, how stress affects health, and how pride can isolate the heart, she begins to pursue a different way. Instead of reacting impulsively, she pauses. Instead of speaking hastily, she listens. Instead of rushing to defend herself, she lets truth and time do the talking. What makes this so powerful is that discernment brings clarity, not just about situations, but about people. Older women are usually not surprised by others' behavior. They've seen patterns repeat themselves. They recognize manipulation, dishonesty, and insecurity more quickly because they've encountered it before. But rather than responding with judgment, they often respond with wisdom. They know when to stay silent and when to speak. They know when to extend grace and when to set boundaries. This level of emotional intelligence allows them to be present without being pulled into unnecessary drama. They've developed a kind of inner filter, a quiet voice that says, "This isn't worth your peace." And they listen to that voice more now than ever before. It's not that they no longer feel the sting of words or the pull of conflict. It's that they've learned to rise above it, to see things through the lens of maturity and not emotion. In relationships, this discernment shows up in profound ways. An older woman doesn't waste time trying to change people who don't want to grow. She accepts what she cannot change and works on what she can herself. She doesn't chase people for validation because she's learned that her worth doesn't come from others' approval. She's not trying to prove anything. Her aim is peace, not popularity, even in family dynamics, where emotions often run deep. Older women tend to bring a calming presence. They understand the long view. They don't get caught in every misunderstanding or debate. Instead, they look at the whole person, the whole story, and make decisions that reflect wisdom, not ego. Whether it's with children, a spouse, or friends, they operate from a place of patience. They have seen that relationships cannot thrive in chaos, and they choose their words with care. One of the reasons older women prefer discernment over drama is because they value their peace. At this point in life, peace is no longer optional, it's essential. They understand how precious it is to have a calm heart, a quiet home, and a life that isn't constantly unsettled by things that, in the end, do not matter. They've learned to let some people go, to forgive others quietly, and to walk away from toxic situations without bitterness. They are not detached. They are simply wise enough to know that their peace must be guarded, and in that wisdom, they become examples to those around them. They teach others, without even trying, how to respond instead of react, how to listen before speaking, and how to let grace be louder than pride. So when you see an older woman who doesn't involve herself in gossip, who doesn't entertain arguments, or who maintains her calm in tense situations, don't mistake her silence for passivity. It is discernment. It is control. It is the strength of a woman who has chosen what matters most: peace over pride, discernment over drama, and wisdom over noise. This is the fruit of a well-lived life, a life that values what is eternal over what is emotional, what is meaningful over what is momentary. And this discernment, this deep, unshakable clarity, is one of the most beautiful marks of a mature woman, certainly. Here's the expanded version of the third keynote: security and identity, written in a clear, reflective, and educational tone, inspired by the steady and spiritually grounded style of Dr. Charles Stanley. There comes a point in a woman's life where the voices around her begin to quiet, and the voice within her grows stronger. It doesn't happen suddenly, but gradually, through the years, through the valleys, through the mountaintops, and through the quiet in between moments. Older women often reach a place where their identity is no longer built on other people's opinions or the expectations society has placed on them. Their sense of self is rooted deeper, anchored not in appearance, approval, or accomplishment, but in something far more secure, a clear understanding of who they are and who they are not. In youth, many struggle with questions like, am I enough? Do they like me? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? But as time goes on and the heart grows through both joy and sorrow, these questions begin to change. Older women often stop asking, what do others think of me? And start asking, what do I think of myself? What does God think of me? There's a freedom that comes from that shift, a quiet confidence that doesn't need to be loud, but is undeniably present. When a woman is secure in her identity, she no longer looks to the mirror for validation. She no longer seeks to be seen in order to feel valuable. She carries herself with grace, not because others are watching, but because she has come to respect herself. This kind of self-respect isn't about ego, it's about knowing where you've been, what you've come through, and who you've become as a result. Life has a way of peeling back the layers with age. The need to impress fades, the comparisons slow down. The pressure to fit into a mold designed by others no longer has power. Instead, there's a deep sense of contentment that grows, not because life is perfect, but because the soul has stopped striving to be someone else. Many older women have been wives, mothers, caretakers, professionals, and leaders. They've worn many hats, and at times they may have lost pieces of themselves trying to meet everyone's needs. But in later seasons of life, something powerful happens. They begin to reclaim their identity. Not in rebellion, but in reflection, they begin to return to the core of who they are, often discovering that their worth was never truly tied to their roles, but to their character. They understand that their value is not dependent on productivity. Whether or not they are busy, whether or not they are seen, they still matter. They don't need constant affirmation to know their place. They've settled into themselves with a confidence that says, I know who I am, and I no longer need your permission to be her. This kind of security brings peace. It allows them to walk into a room without the need to be noticed because they are already grounded. They listen more than they speak, not because they have nothing to say, but because they've learned the strength in silence. They dress for themselves. They speak with authenticity. They choose friendships that are life-giving rather than draining. Perhaps one of the greatest signs of a secure woman is that she no longer views other women as competition. She celebrates them. She encourages them. She recognizes the beauty in others without questioning her own. That's the beauty of maturity. It allows you to applaud someone else's strength without doubting your own. Older women have often walked through rejection, loss, or seasons where they felt invisible, and yet, rather than being defeated by those seasons, they've used them as stepping stones toward a stronger identity. They've learned how to be alone without feeling lonely. They've found peace in solitude, clarity in quietness, and joy in their own presence. This internal security also transforms their relationships. They no longer tolerate what dishonors them, not because they're prideful, but because they know they are worthy of respect. They set boundaries, not to keep people out, but to protect their peace. They give love freely, but wisely. They know their time is sacred, and they choose to spend it with people who reflect their values. In a world that constantly tries to define worth through youth, beauty, popularity, or success, older women are living proof that true identity is not defined by any of those things. It's built on something eternal, something unshakable. And when a woman is secure in who she is, she becomes a steady presence in a world that's often unstable. She is not moved by the trends. She is not shaken by rejection. She is not confused by criticism. She knows who she is. And that security, that unshakable sense of self, is one of the most beautiful and powerful things about her. Certainly. Below is the expanded version of the fourth keynote, Nurturing with Wisdom, written in an educational, steady, and spiritually grounded tone inspired by the teaching style of Dr. Charles Stanley. There is a kind of nurturing that doesn't come from instinct alone, but from experience, seasoned, refined, and deepened over time. While many associate nurturing with warmth and care, there is something particularly profound about the way older women nurture. It is not hurried. It is not shallow. It comes from a well that has been filled slowly, drop by drop, Through the joys, sorrows, sacrifices, and revelations of a life well lived, it is a nurturing that is rich in wisdom, shaped not only by what they've learned, but by what they overcome. Older women have walked through many seasons. They've known the highs of success and the lows of grief. They've watched children grow and parents fade. They've stood at the crossroads of heartbreak and hope. And through those moments, their nurturing spirit has matured. What they offer now is not just kindness. It is understanding. It is perspective. It is a depth of compassion that doesn't simply say, I care, but says, I know. You see, wisdom allows nurturing to take on a different form. It's not always about fixing things. It's about being present. It's not always about giving answers. Sometimes it's about asking the right questions or simply being there with a quiet strength when someone else is unraveling. Older women have learned that not every wound needs a solution right away. Some wounds just need time, space, and someone to say, you're not alone. This kind of nurturing is subtle. It doesn't always come with fanfare. It might be a gentle word at the right moment, a calm voice in the middle of chaos, or a patient ear when no one else has time to listen. It might show up in acts of service that seem small on the surface but carry great weight. Making a meal, checking in with a lonely friend, or offering a soft hand on the shoulder of someone who's barely holding on. What makes it powerful is not only the action, but the spirit behind it. It comes from a heart that has been softened by suffering, but not hardened by it. Many older women have poured themselves out for others for years, often in ways that went unnoticed. They've stayed up late for sick children, made sacrifices in silence, held their families together with prayer and perseverance. And now, with all that behind them, their nurturing carries something sacred, the wisdom of knowing what truly matters. They no longer rush to rescue everyone. They've learned that sometimes people must go through their own valley to find their strength. And yet they stay close enough to help when help is truly needed. That balance of standing with someone without standing in the way of their growth is the fruit of wisdom. Older women also nurture through encouragement that is rooted in truth. They don't flatter. They affirm. They see the good in others, not because they are blind to faults, but because they choose to focus on what can be built instead of what is broken. They know how powerful words can be, and they use theirs carefully to speak life, to restore hope, and to remind others of who they really are. Their nurturing is also felt in how they guide without controlling. They've raised children, supported partners, mentored younger women, and led within their communities. They know that people flourish not under pressure, but under grace. Their advice is given in humility, often followed by stories that reveal their own missteps. They don't preach, they share, they don't command, they invite, and perhaps most significantly, older women nurture with faith. Their words and actions are often rooted in a quiet trust in God. They have seen His faithfulness through decades. They've prayed through seasons of uncertainty, and they've watched how things that once felt impossible came together in time. So when they comfort others, it is not just with sympathy, but with conviction. It is not, I hope things will be okay. But I know God can carry you through this because He carried me. Their nurturing carries both gentleness and strength. It comes from hearts that have been broken and healed, stretched and restored. It is not sentimental. It is steady. And it doesn't fade with time. It only deepens. In a world that often prizes quick results and surface level interaction, the nurturing wisdom of older women is a gift. Quiet, steady, and deeply needed. They remind us that love is more than feeling. It is presence. That care is more than action. It is discernment. And that true nurturing is not something you grow out of, but something you grow into. Through the years, through the tears, and through the grace that carried them, older women nurture not just with hands, but with wisdom. And that makes all the difference.